Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining today, for being connected on streaming. Today we are going to talk about how to build inlining. This session is specially designed for Visualforce developers who want to start their journey inlining. So if you are that person, stay here with me. This is the forward-looking statement. This is something that we have at Salesforce, and it means that you should make your purchasing decisions based on the functionality that is currently available, because today we are going to talk about some pilots and about some beta features that shouldn't influence your purchasing decisions. And with that, I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Alba Rivas. As you can see per my accent, I'm Spanish, and I'm based in the south of Spain, in Granada. This is my Twitter handle. I'm very active on Twitter, so if you want to follow me, if you have any questions, anything, please ping me on Twitter. And if you want to do some more formal conversation, here you have also my email. So first of all, I want to explain why I decided to give this session. The reality is that in today's world, we are being asked to build each time more engaging and more faster user experiences. If you come from the Visualforce world, you may be wondering which is the best way to build all those new great experiences in Lightning Experience. And some of you may think that the answer to that is to use Lightning Web Components. And don't misunderstand me, because I love Lightning Web Components. This is a super great framework. But the correct answer to that question is that most of the times the best way to build in Lightning is to use a combination of declarative together with programmatic features. So during the next hour, what I'm going to do is to give you an overview of all the declarative features and all the programmatic features that we can use in Lightning. As I am a developer, I love demos, and also I love gardening. So we are going to imagine, all of us, for a second, that we are developers for a company called Gardening for All. Gardening for All is a company that gives gardening training courses. They have this really old-fashioned Visualforce application built in Salesforce. And they use the application to keep track of the courses that are going to take place. Also, they keep track of the students that register in the courses and tackle the courses. And also they keep track of the invoices that are generated for every student. So here we can see how the record page of the contact object has been overridden with a Visualforce page. In this page, we can see here, this is an Apex form built using a standard controller, and we can see here that there is a list with all the course deliveries in which the user has registered. In this case, all of them are delivered. If we want to register a student for a new course, we can do that thanks to this button. This button is going to navigate to a Visualforce page, so this is completely custom. And what we are going to do is register Mark Kingston to the source course. We are going to see which deliveries do we have for this course. We want to do this one, which is in Madrid, in 3 days, the 20th of January. And we are going to register the student. Here we have the course. So this is great, but we want to also track the invoices that are generated for the student. And we can see the invoices here. We are able also to create invoices pressing this button. And here we are going to say that, for example, we are going to charge $1,000 to Mark Kingston for the last course that we have registered. Great. And here on the right-hand side, you can see a calendar. This is a calendar built with a third-party JavaScript library called fullcalendar.io. We use a third-party JavaScript library because this is very handy, it's very easy to use, it's very easy to implement, and we thought at the moment that it was a good idea. But apart from that, we have also an integration between this list here, which is really a page block table created in Visualforce, with the calendar on the right hand side, because we can click on the different rows and see when does each course delivery take place. So I explained you all of this because during the webinar we are going to migrate all this page, all this functionality to Lightning, and we are going to use almost all the declarative and programmatic tools that we have available. You are going to see how easy it is to do that and how quick. So, well, and I forgot to say that this related list here is a standard related list because invoice is a related object with the contact object. But here we couldn't use the standard related list because it's a custom page block table in which we are aggregating data from multiple objects. We are showing information about the courses, about the course deliveries, also about the instructors. So that's the reason we had to do something a bit more custom. So let me go back to the presentation. And here we are going to start talking about the low-code tools, which I normally say declarative tools because this is the naming that we have employed in the past, but now we prefer to call those tools low-code tools. Why? Because normally these are tools with which you don't need code. You can build business processes or user interfaces just using point and click, dragging and drop components into the page, but optionally you can extend the content of those tools with code. That's the reason we want to call them low-code tools. And this has many benefits. We are going to see that explaining our first tool, which is the Lightning App Builder. You are probably familiar already with Lightning App Builder because it has been there for some time, but I want to highlight which benefits of Lightning App Builder I think that are most important. So first of all, the way of developing in Lightning changes completely because now we are not going to build monolithic Visualforce pages, which are kind of silos, difficult to extend, difficult to maintain. If you add something into the page, you probably have to change some code. With App Builder, we have something which is completely different. We have a component-based development model in which we drag and drop components into the page and we compose the page. If in the future we want to change the layout, we want to add new components into the page, we want to delete components, that's going to be super easy. But on top of that, not only developers can create landing pages with a builder or configure landing pages with a builder, because an admin can do it and someone who doesn't have development skills can do that as well. In a builder, we have some out-of-the-box components provided by Salesforce, but you can also reuse your Visualforce pages, create your custom Lightning components, and even you can download components from the App Exchange built by your partners. These components are going to be installed org-wide. That means that the components are going to be available in all our low-code tools, not only in App Builder. If you install a component that supports the utility bar and App Builder, it will appear as available to be used both in the utility bar and in App Builder. And this is super cool. And the other big benefit of building Lightning pages with App Builder and in general with all the Lightning Experience declarative features, is that we have designed them thinking in mobile. If you design a page in a builder, you are going to be able to define different layouts for desktop, mobile, and tablet, different form factors, so that if the page appears in a tiny screen, you only show some of the components or the components in a different position in the page, so that it is more easier to use and more easier to use and more readable. Also, in the Lightning components that you build, you can detect, thanks to some APIs that we provide, if you are if the component is being visualized in a browser or in a mobile phone or in a tablet. And that way you can also make your components responsive. That means that if you are in a tiny screen, maybe you don't need to show all the information that you have in the same component that you will show if it's rendered in a desktop. You don't want to overwhelm the customer when you are working in tiny screens. So, until now, if you wanted to use fields into a builder, you had to go back to page layouts. Page layout editor has been here for many years. It has been great for a long time, but now we need to have something else. And for that, we have already a pilot in place, which is called Dynamic Forms. And Dynamic Forms pilot is evolving and should be beta or I think GA very soon. So with this pilot, what we are going to do is to allow placing your fields, your record fields, in different positions in the screen directly in a builder. And we are going to see that in our demo later. The next tool I want to talk about before going to the first demo is actions. Actions have also been there for a long time. Actions existed in Salesforce Classic as well. But I think that most of the people don't know the power of actions, because with actions you can do like so many things, and normally people is not aware of that. And that's the reason I wanted to highlight actions in this presentation. With actions, what you can do is to create some buttons that you can place on the screen so that a modal pop-up appears and the user can perform some interactions. And there are many kind of ways of defining these actions, because you can create actions decoratively. There are also some out-of-the-box actions that we provide for every object. And also, you can even launch a flow. You can fire a flow and embed it into a modal pop-up with a flow action. Show a Visualforce page if you want to keep using your Visualforce pages, and show Lightning components. So these are super cool. And normally the user experience that you get with actions is much better, because the user doesn't have to navigate to a different page to perform an action and then go back. You can perform the actions on the same page, and the user experience improves a lot. Again, actions, if you want to create actions at the moment and you want to place them into your Lightning page, you have to go back to Page Layout Editor. We don't want that to be there for much more time, and that's the reason we have another pilot, which is the Dynamic Actions Bar pilot. With the Dynamic Actions Bar pilot, we are going to have a component that allows you to define your actions directly in App Builder, and I'm going to show you that in a second. So let's go to our first demo. We said that Gardening for All wants to migrate this page or this app to Lightning. So the first tool that they are going to use is App Builder. I have already created a Lightning app, because Lightning pages must belong to Lightning apps. You cannot add Lightning pages into classic apps. And I have already created a Lightning page in which we are going to try to recreate the functionality of our Visualforce page at least as much as we can declaratively. So first, we are going to use the highlights panel. The highlights panel is the component that at the moment shows the actions that you define in page layout, but that will change in the future. We want to have some actions because we identify that there are some use cases in our Visualforce page that can be replaced by actions. Also, we are going to use the record detail component. The record detail component is going to show all the fields that are configured again in the page layout for the contact object, the one that we are referencing here. And this is going to change thanks to dynamic forms. What else did we have in the page? We had a related list to show invoices. So as this was a standard related list, we can still use that. So let's do that. We are going to select invoices, and here we have our related list directly in App Builder. So very easy. And now I have migrated most of the functionality, but I have some more space in the page, and what I can do is to even augment the functionality of my page using some of the out-of-the-box standard components that we provide, or even components installed from the App Exchange that will appear here, but we don't have components from the App Exchange at the moment. For that, what we are going to do is to use the Chatter Feed component, because that is going to allow the Gardening for All employees to communicate very well about the student registrations and how the courses are going, etc. So we are going to save, and here that I have the page open, we are going to see how it looks like. So you can see that in just a couple of seconds, we have been able to reproduce a big part of the functionality of the page. But now I want you to pay attention to this section here, the actions section. Where do you define these actions? Well, for that, you have to go to the setup menu for the object. In this case, it's going to be contact. And here we have some out-of-the-box actions, as for example, edit and delete. In the initial page, we were using a standard controller, and we had an Apex form in which we included some buttons, and those buttons were redirecting to the delete and edit pages thanks to the standard controller edit and delete methods. It happens that if you have that situation, normally you are going to have all those standard controller methods already available as actions. So the best replacement that you can do is to go to your actions page, to your page layout, and just drag and drop these two actions that are there already for you. Here we have another action. This is a create record quick action, and we have used this action to replace our create invoice functionality. When I talked about declarative quick actions, I was talking about this. So there are a couple of things that you can build with just clicks in the platform that are actions, and this is very convenient because what I want to do is to create a related record. This is going to allow me to create a related record. And instead of having to code anything, I just have to edit the layout, specify the fields that I want to appear there. And if I want to do something else, I can even define a predefined field value for the fields that appear in that layout. So that's very convenient because with just clicks, we were able to reproduce our create invoice functionality, and we are going to see how it looks like. You see that it's lining experience look and feel, and I hadn't, it took me, well, I had created it already, but it can take you 10 or 20 seconds to create it. So this time we are going to charge $1,000 for another course that we are going to add in a second as well. And again, here we have the edit and delete standard actions. I haven't opened the page layouts, but I'm going to do it in a second. So if you go to the page layout, the section in which you have to drag and drop these actions is here in the Salesforce mobile and lightning experience actions. There is where you have to place them. And the fields, where I think everybody knows that the fields are dragged and dropped in different sections in the page layout. Great. So let's go back to our actions, and okay, we are fine with actions. I talked about two pilots, the dynamic forms and the dynamic actions pilots. And I'm sure that you want to see these pilots in place. And for that, we are going to navigate to a course page. This is a page that I have already created, a landing page in App Builder. And instead working on the contacts functionality, we are going to work this time in the courses detail page. And what I'm going to do is to edit this page in App Builder. In this page, in this org, I have activated the two pilots, the dynamic forms and dynamic actions pilots. So let's talk first about the dynamic forms pilot. The first thing that you have to do if you want to use dynamic forms is, instead of using the record detail component, you have to use this component here, field section. So in my case, I want to have two sections. I want to have one section here and another section here. Once you have your sections, you are ready to add your components. So for that, your fields, sorry. For that, we are going to the Fields tab. In the Fields tab, you have all the fields that you can drag and drop into the sections. And we are going to use course name, course description. And on the right-hand side, we are going to use status and duration. But there's something else. Have you heard about App Builder filters? Filters allow you to apply conditional visibility conditions to the components that you have in the page. But with dynamic forms, you can apply those visibility filters to each independent field. So let's try that, and we are going to say that our duration field should only be shown if the status of the course is active. We don't want to see the duration if the status is different from active. Okay, so that's fine. Let's save our page. And now we are going to take a look at the dynamic actions bar pilot. For that, we are going to have a new component. This is the dynamic action bar component. And this is something that you can drag and drop anywhere in the page. In my case, I'm going to select this area. And the actions that appear here are not governed by the page layout anymore. It's something that you configure directly here. So I'm going to add a new action, which is going to be the delete action. And it happens that I can apply independent visibility filters to these actions too. So I don't want to delete a course that's not active as well. So I'm going to add the same filter. and we are going to try this page out. As you can see, if you have a visibility filter, an orange icon is going to appear in your component. So this is great. We have saved the page. And if I go back to my page, we can see here that this is the first field section that we created. This is the second field section that we created. And as the status is active, I'm seeing the duration. And also here we can see the action bar component. And again, we can see the delete action because the status is still active. But we are going to change that. Let's change that to retired. And let's save and see what happens. Oh, look what happened. The delete action disappeared and the field disappeared. That's the reason we call that dynamic. Okay, so let's go back to the presentation. And we're going to continue with our next tool, which is Lightning Flow. If you don't know Lightning Flow is one of the simplest and most powerful declarative tools that we have in Lightning. And we have invested a lot in Lightning Flow in the last months. So I strongly recommend you to take a look at everything what's new. So basically in Lightning Flow, what you can do is to build either business processes that don't have a UI or UIs. Normally, what you define, if you want to define a UI in Flow, is a wizard, a succession of screens in which you are asking the user for some values and doing something with that. And again, Lightning Flow is very powerful because you can use the standard components that we provide, but you can extend it with Lightning Web Components. This is super powerful, and I'm not going to show that today, but you can find a lot of blogs in our developer blog and a lot of sessions in our channels that will explain that in detail. But what I want to mention is that in this last release, we have announced a lot of changes related to integration and flow. So we have announced at Dreamforce and at TDX India's things like we can now publish and subscribe to platform events from Flow. This is super cool for integration. We can also, with external services, what you can do is if you have an external endpoint which follows the Open API standard, you can convert that into an endpoint that is that you can call declaratively from Lightning Flow. Basically, what happens is that an Apex invocable method is created behind the scenes, but you can do that with no code knowledge, and that will work very, very fine. And also, we have improved the types that you can use when Lightning Flow, when your flows talk to Apex, and that's going to be very useful when you are communicating with external data services, because if, for example, you need to interchange object with a specific shape, you can create a custom class, a custom Apex type for that object, and that's going to be much easier to use in Flow. And finally, I wanted to mention that the API limits have been also increased and should be more easy to work with flows. And even if you reach the API limits, your flow is not going to stop working. You receive some warnings, but now that's a soft limit that can be increased. And there are much more improvements, and I strongly recommend you to take a look at the release notes as well, also at Dreamforce and TDX India announcements. So let me go back to the demo. In the demo, we had something that is clearly a candidate to be replaced by a flow. it was the register user for new course functionality, because you have a succession of screens in which you have to first select the course, then select the course delivery, and then register the user for a new course. So I have created all that already in Flow, in Lightning Flow Builder. So here we can see the first screen. The first screen is going to be the course selection. And here we have a record choice that basically is going to show all the courses that are available. Then I have another screen which is select course delivery. This record choice is filtered by the first record choice, so it's only going to show the course deliveries for the selected course. And finally, we have another step which is create record. In this step, what we do is to create a record of an object called course attendee, which is the one which links the student with the course delivery. And what we do is to create a record pointing to the course delivery that has been selected and pointing to the record ID of the contact that we are trying to register. And from where can we call our flows? That is super easy, and the user experience is the best one that you can get. Great. From our actions. So here I have already created a flow action. The only thing that you have to specify is the name of the flow that you wanna launch. You can see here that the action type is flow, and we are going to test that. So here we can see that there is another action which is register for new course. This is hidden because I picked the default configuration for the highlights panel, but you can configure how many actions do you want to appear directly. And we are going to click on register user for new course. In this case, we are going to pick irrigation systems because it's the only one that Mark hasn't done yet. We are going to take the release, the delivery that takes place in February. And finally, the contact is going to be registered correctly. So this is great because we had a great use case to be replaced by a flow. And the last tool, the creative tool I want to talk about is utility bar. Utility bar is a persistent footer that is going to increase your user's productivity because it allows you to have at hand all the functionality that you use the most. Again, in utility bar, you can use the out-of-the-box components that we provide, but you can use also standard custom components that you build, custom Lightning components, and components that you download from the App Exchange. And also, you can include Visualforce if you want to keep using Visualforce. So, let's continue with our exercise of migrating the page. So, in the initial page, we had also a clear candidate to be placed in the utility bar, which is the calendar, right? I want to have the calendar available, but there is taking a lot of space in the page, and well, sometimes maybe I don't need it there, right? So we are going to place the calendar in our utility bar. For that, what you have to do is to go to the Setup, App Manager, and your Lightning app, and go into the configuration menu for your Lightning app. In Utility Items is where you can configure which items go into the utility bar. And if I click here, we can see what I said before. We have some standard components, but also we can use custom components and App Exchange components. But in this case, I was happy using my third-party JavaScript library. I like it. I don't have the time to change that, and I want to keep using that for convenience. So we are going to do that because in all the declarative tools, all the low-code tools that we have in Lightning Experience, you can keep using Visualforce. We have designed them to be backwards compatible and to allow you to do that. So here you can see that this is a Visualforce component, and basically we have created a second version of the page, of the Visualforce page, which just contains the calendar. If we come here, we can click on the calendar and we can see that we have exactly the same functionality, and we are going to have this available anytime that we need it. Okay, so we have finished with our low-code tools. Let's start talking about our ProCode tools. Our ProCode tools are those that need code, and basically what you can use is Visualforce. You can still use Visualforce if you need so, but we strongly recommend you to try to start using Lightning components as much as possible, and I will explain some use cases in which is strongly recommended even to migrate your existing Visualforce pages. So first, I want to talk about Lightning Web Components. Lightning Web Components is the framework that we released earlier last year in January. And Lightning Web Components is completely based on modern web standards. What does that mean? Well, it means that if you learn Lightning Web Components, you are really learning JavaScript and how to use a library called Lightning Web Components in JavaScript that is very well integrated with Salesforce. This is super important to understand, because if you learn Lightning Web Components, you are going to increase and improve your skills in web development with all the newest standards. And also, if you need to hire someone, it's going to be much easier to find someone who knows JavaScript than someone who knows, Visualforce, for example. Okay, so you don't have to start from scratch. We have a library of more than 150 base components already available for you. This is the base components library. You can find that if you go to the Lightning Web Components documentation. And here you have all the components with the documentation, examples of how to use it, and even you have a playground in which you can play with your components to see if you can get what you need, or to see the expected result without having to go to your local development environment. And also I mentioned Lightning Design System. So, well, Lightning Design System is really a couple of things. First of all, this is a manual. It's a manual that the user experience designers of Salesforce have created, so that if you are going to build something in Salesforce, it matches, or you have all the tools available to match the Salesforce look and feel in the best way as possible. So first you have the manual, you have explanation on how we do things, how do we define layouts, how do we use text, how do we use margins, paddings, etc. But also you have a set of style sheets already available for you. These style sheets are loaded every time that you load Lightning Experience, and you have a lot of classes defined that our user experience designers have created, so that you can reuse them and you don't have to worry about the specific number of the light blue color that is being used somewhere else. A big benefit of this is that if we decide to change our colors, for example, those colors are going to change in your components automatically, and they are going to continue following the Salesforce look and feel. And finally, also in Learning Design System, what you have are tokens that point to all those predefined values that we have decided, and you can use those tokens to create your own classes in your own CSS style sheets. Okay, so this is something new that we are working on, as we have realized that people that come from the Visualforce world, I hope that most of the people who's listening to this presentation today need a way to transform the way in which they think in Visualforce to the way in which they will think in Lightning Web Components. And that's the reason we are working on an app, a sample app. This sample app is not available yet, but it's going to be available very soon. And this sample app contains recipes that will help you migrate to Lightning Web Components your Visualforce code. When you have to go for the programmatic option, you can go here and you will be able to go here and take a look at the recipes that are part of this sample app, see if the Visualforce implementation is what you want to do, and find the equivalent Lightning Web Components implementation, either to copy that and more interesting to learn about that, right? So let me show you this app. So here you can see, well, this is a new app, okay, Visualforce to LWC, and we can see that there are a couple of tabs. We have tried to categorize the examples by different criteria, and for example in the first tab we are going to have some recipes about UI components, about components with which you can define the layout of a page. Typically, for example, you will be using page blocks in Visualforce, and we tell you how to do the same, okay, in Lightning Web Components. From here, you can open the Visualforce implementation to check if this is specifically what you need. And you can also open the Lightning Web Component implementation and see how this has been done. So it should be easy for you to go here and replace some things. We have also some recipes about how to replace record navigation. This is going to typically be done using actions, but we have also a navigation service available. And we will have also some recipes that show you how to work with forms. Sorry, I'm navigating this way, but it happens that most of the recipes that are related to records need to be placed in a record page to have a record ID and be real recipes. And that's the reason we have everything in contacts and in accounts. So here we have some recipes related to how you create forms in Lightning Web Components, which, well, you have several approaches to do that. But today I'm more interested in the lists recipes, okay? Why? Because remember that in our initial page, we had here a custom page block table. This page block table had to be custom because we were aggregating data from different sources. Well, really what we had was an Apex controller that was bringing data from the course delivery, from the course, and from the instructor, okay? So this is something that you can typically do in Visualforce, but in a page block table. But how can you replace that in Lightning Web Components? So for that, I'm going to take a look here, and it happens that there is a recipe that shows me how to use a list with related record data. This is cool because I can go here and take a look at the recipe. So To show a list with related record data, what you can do is to use a lining data table. This is one of our base components, but you have to do something else, because in the JavaScript controller of your lining web components, you have to transform the way in which that information is coming from the backend, from your Apex controller, to something that is understandable by the lining data table. And what we do is that we provide a method for you to do so that you don't have to create that method by yourself. And probably taking a look at this code, you are going to learn how to do this, or learn how things are done this way. So what we did, I already created a component. I already copied that recipe and adapted the code to create my course deliveries list component. And it's the same one. It's just a lining data table with some configuration that I have done. And here you can see that I'm using exactly the same method that we were using in the recipes, flatten Apex as objects. And this has some more code, because I'm going to show you something else later. But basically, this is exactly the same piece of code that we copied from the recipe. So what we are going to do is to place that component into our page, which is this one. I'm going to click Save, and we're going to see how this component has been placed in the page and works perfectly. We have a nice lining data table which works as any lining data table. Has all the standard functionality already implemented. Okay, so what else do we need to do? Well, I've talked about lining web components. Lining web components is our new programming framework that you all should be already learning, because this is the future for us. But if you have a strong necessity to keep using Visualforce, you can do that. Visualforce can be reused within all our low-code declarative features, as you can see. Visualforce can be used also with and together with lining web components and Aura components. For that, we have two mechanisms. The first mechanism is called lining out. Lining out allows you to embed a lining component either built with LWC or with Aura in a Visualforce page and communicate the Visualforce page with the lining component. But we have something that is new, that is very interesting, called lining message service. The lining message service is a beta feature in Sprint 20, so at the moment. And the lining message service allows you to communicate components and Visualforce pages, and components can be built in any of the two programming languages or frameworks that we have. And those components can be in any part of the page. They can live in different DOM hierarchies, and this message services is going to be a communication channel through which all those components and Visualforce pages can communicate, and this is very powerful. So, and there's something else I want to talk about related Visualforce pages. If you want to keep using your Visualforce pages in learning experience, there is also a little trick that you can apply, which is use the lining style sheets attribute. This attribute is something that you apply to the page, and if you are using standard Visualforce components, those components are going to be styled like lining experience. It's not going to be like the full styling, because the components are kind of different, but it's going to look much nicer. So for example, if you have a Visualforce page like this and you apply the lining style sheets attribute, you are going to end up having something like this, which is much more and it's much nicer, right? Okay, so finally, I'm going to demo the Lightning Message service, okay? So in the initial page, remember that we had an integration between the calendar and the table, the page block table that we have on the left-hand side. In the new application, we have our Lightning Web Component, which was this Lightning data table here. And we have also our Visualforce page, which is living in the utility bar. So do you think that we are going to be able to use the Lightning Message service here? Of course, because even though they live in different DOM hierarchies, this communication channel is going to allow me to communicate those components, Visualforce and Lightning Web components, between themselves. So for that, we are going to publish an event from our Lightning Web component, and we are going to listen to that component in our calendar. And that's the reason. Okay, so first, let me show you the Lightning Message channel. The Lightning Message channel is a new metadata type that you have to create and deploy to your organization. And this is to ensure referential integrity. And once we have deployed our Lightning Message channel, we can start using that in our Lightning code, Lightning Web Component code, Aura code, and also Visualforce code. We wanted to publish a message from our Lightning Web Component, and that's the reason I had some more code here. For that, the first thing that we are going to do is to import the Lightning Message channel that we have created. We are going to import also some functions from the message service module, and then what we are going to do is that we are going to have a raw action in our Lightning data table, that each time that we fire that raw action, we are going to send that event. We are doing that through this method here, showing calendar. And the way to publish, it's send an event, but it's really publishing a message. The way to publish a message into our message channel is this one. You create the message. In this case, we want to carry the start date of the course delivery in the payload, because we want to place the calendar component in that specific date, and we call publish. From Visualforce, the good news is that the way to do that is going to be very similar. So what we have to do is to instantiate the message channel. We subscribe to the message channel, and we define a handler. The handler will be called every time the method, a message is listened. And in our case, we are going to navigate to the date in the calendar. We are using the API of the calendar component library. So here we can showcase that, and we can see that our Lightning Message service has performed the integration fantastically. Great. So we have seen how in just a couple of minutes, well, it took me some more time when I did it the first time, but not much more, we have been able to migrate all the Visualforce page functionality with using a lot of declarative tools, and also using programmatic for when declarative was not enough. We got a lot of benefits from that, and we haven't shown you this, but this would be the way in which it looks like the app when you take a look at in the phone. So you have seen that it has become instantly mobile with almost no effort. So some takeaways from this presentation is that, well, bear in mind that Visualforce pages can be reused in learning experience declaratively and programmatically, and can be Lightning styled, but you can consider doing a migration, and this is especially interesting when you want to have faster performance, because Lightning Web Components is completely based on a standard, is leveraging all the browser native capabilities, and all the rendering is done client side, so it's going to be much more faster than a Visualforce page. And if you want to have a better user experience, especially for mobile, is another big use case in which you should consider a migration. If you are going to build in Lightning, use declarative features when possible, but if that's not possible, start today learning Lightning Web Components. Use all the material that we have, and you will have also very soon the Visualforce 12WC recipes sample app. And here I want to leave you some of the resources. Okay, so the first one is where we publish, the place where we publish all the sample apps. So please go there and take a look. We have many sample apps written in Lightning Web Components, and that's going to be super helpful for you. Also, we have the Lightning Web Components documentations. I recommend you to subscribe to our developer blog, because there we publish a lot of reading material, which is very useful as well, and also to our developer webinars channel, in which you can even review old recordings that we have produced really recently. And finally, these are some of the badges that you can tackle on Trailhead that are related to everything that I have talked about today. And if you want to help us, you have the power to influence our roadmap. You have the power to let us know what do you need. So we have created a survey that you can complete, is this link here, to give us feedback. What do you need? What are you struggling with in your migration to Lightning? What recipes do you need in the sample app? Whatever, please let us know, and we will really appreciate that. And again, these are my Twitter handle and my email address in case that you want to contact me later. And that's all. Thank you very much, and see you soon.